Hey there, I'm Axton, and welcome to this tutorial. If you're here, you're probably coming from the forum topic that I made about it, but this tutorial is specifically on the puddle material that I made, how to use it, and how to make masks for it. It should be really quick, so let's get started. Basically, the puddle material is just a simple decal. It's a pretty simple material in general. Not a whole lot going on, there's just some normal stuff and a little bit of opacity and color. The gist of it is, it creates some dynamic puddles that you can move around and place down on your map. They look pretty nice. Using it is very simple. There's only 3 real variables that you can control for it, and only 3 that you really need to control for it. One of them being the actual map for the puddles, which controls where they appear. One of them being the puddle color, which you can make bright, but just don't. It works better as a dark value. And there's also the strength, which is basically just how strong the puddle decal is. So you can have some very weak ones with only a little bit of wetness, and then you can have some very strong ones that look like deep puddles. This can also be, if you're a little bit tech savvy, controlled by a parameter collection and edited in real time over gameplay, but this won't be covering that. That's kind of out of the scope of this tutorial. You'll have to figure that out on your own, although I know there's lots of resources on that online and on the UE4 forums. So I'm not going to get into much of how the material works. I just want to cover how to use it. Really all you need to be doing is editing these values and making maps. And the editing the values part is very simple, but the making maps is something I'd like to touch on a little bit. So let's do that. So we're going to go into Photoshop here. If you don't have Photoshop, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I haven't used GIMP in years, but I assume that if it's about still the same as I once used it as, it probably has pretty much the same features as Photoshop, just with different names, so I'm sure you can figure it out easily enough. So we're just going to create a new document. It is 1024. This is the resolution that I've been using, but you could really be using any. RGB color 8-bit. Like I said, what I use, you could be using any. So just make sure your background's black when you first make it. And then layer from background, so we have an unlocked background layer. Then the first thing we're going to do is just click New Layer. Doesn't matter what it's named. We're going to do the same thing. Fill it with black. So we have 2 black layers now, and we're just going to make sure that the blending type on this first layer is multiply. So now layer 1 is at multiply, and it's not doing anything just yet, but it will in a moment. So we're going to go to layer 0, and we're going to select Filter, Render, Clouds. And as you can see, we have some nice clouds there. And now the fun part is we're going to get a brush, decent size, make sure it's white. Then we're going to go to layer 1, and we're just going to paint around. And turn my opacity up a little bit. Or all the way, I should say. So we're just going to paint around with a full opacity white brush and make some general wobbly shapes. The shapes don't really matter, because the shape isn't going to be what's driving the puddle. It's going to be these clouds in the background. So we're just going to do that real quick. And voila. Maybe add a little bit to the bottom here. Then we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we want to select a radius that just barely meets the edge here, but keeps the edge basically black. So in this case it's going to be about 40 pixels. I'm going to click OK. And that's basically the gist of it. Now you have a puddle map. Now we're just going to save this. I'm going to save it in my downloads folder because I'm a cretin and that's where I store my images. And I'm going to name it Puddle Map 6. I'm going to make sure that there's no compression on it. I don't really know if that changes much, but that's what I like to do. And that's all we need to do in Photoshop. So, to get that into the game, we just have to go to our mask folder, right click, import, select our puddle map, and there we have it. Now we can just add this as our puddle map, and you'll see that we have a puddle. We can adjust the strength a little bit, and our puddle is ready. So you probably notice that this is a bit soft, and there's no good way to explain it, but basically the edges of the puddles here are kind of stretching out onto the ground a little bit, and depending on the theme of your map, that might be fine, or you might want some more kind of contrasty, starkly defined puddles. Some of this can be achieved with the strength, but if you don't want giant puddles, there's a different way. Go back into Photoshop and select your layer with the clouds, and then we're just going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. And now we can just adjust these levels until it has about what you're looking for in terms of contrast. So in this case, I want to blow out the white a little bit, and I just want a little bit of a... There we go. So I want something like that, and then we can just save that. And I'll save that as Puddle Map 7. Then we can go back into UE4, and in this case I'll create a new material instance. And then we just open that up, check Puddle Map, import our mask, and there we have it. We have a new puddle. And as you can see, it's much more contrasty than the other one. They are side by side. That's about all there is to it. You should know how to use the material now. So thank you for watching, and see you later.